This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Vet Candy's podcast and other news. This is a podcast to expand your idea of what is impacting the veterinary world, veterinarians, and all animal care professionals as humans. We are your co-hosts. I am Dr. Jen.
And I'm Dr. Jason Chatfield.
And if you are not yet a Vet Candy subscriber,
why not?
Please subscribe for free today at myvetcandy.com. You can also reach me with any message of love and positivity at Jen at myvetcandy.com.
Or me for all else important things at Jason at myvetcandy.com.
So our topic today is parasitology.
In other news, we still haven't solved the parasitology problem.
No. I mean, we're trying.
Every day.
But every time we figure it out, like a parasite figures out a way around it. Isn't
That's
that right?
their job.
It is their job.
Yeah, we're all just trying to survive.
I know. And so, Jason, I'm going to ask you if you remember, I'm sure that the news hounds don't know, but we used to raise Old English sheepdogs when we were growing up.
Correct.
Yep. Leonard was the best. Lady Leonard.
Yeah.
And Lord Irving. Leonard was the best dog ever. We might not be walking if it wasn't for Leonard.
That's correct. They're pretty tough to drag us around, right? You might have learned to walk, grab onto the dog. I ain't carrying you.
That's right.
Rough go of it in Texas.
Yes. And but I remember when we would bathe them, I mean, they would just have tons of ticks, and it was just like, what happened?
Yeah, we pull them off. Move on.
Yeah, well, or we raked them off, like in those floppy ears, right?
Yeah,
like
in the ears. Yeah, it's pretty gross, right? If you think about it happening nowadays.
It's nasty. I don't even remember fleas because they were small.
Yeah.
Ticks were big. And
yeah, because it wasn't like they were little things, a big gray engorged grossness. Yeah.
And you could directionally squish those, right?
I mean, you tried, but
yeah, you could.
Yeah. I just tried to get out of the bathing duty as fast as I could, that's for sure.
Yes. But anyway, we digress to childhood here. We don't really know too much about ticks except what we've just now mentioned. But luckily, as always, we invite into the Candyverse an expert on the topic.
We did.
That's right. So today we have the esteemed Dr. Kathryn Duncan with us. Dr. Duncan, welcome to In Other News.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And it's by no accident that we have you, because we were remembering ticks because we're from Texas where they have ticks.
Yes.
And ticks, you like ticks, don't you?
I spend probably 18 hours of my day either talking about ticks, thinking about ticks, what we're going to do with all the ticks that we have currently.
Well,
we just finished. Yeah, you definitely. We just finished a huge national survey of ticks infesting dogs and cats. It's called Show Us Your Ticks.
Yes.
Show us your That's hilarious.
Yes.
You have to, but so I know, but I helped in my very own small way to promote that because I thought it was fabulous. And you had to be very careful to enunciate clearly the name of the program.
Or type
right?
it correctly,
yes.
like I just did. It was an interesting Google search.
Okay. Yes, Show Us Your Ticks. But
Yep.
So Show Us Your Ticks is completed now. People should not be submitting ticks to you guys anymore, right?
Correct. It was just with coronavirus happening, we didn't want that to bias which clinics were sending us ticks or what pet owners. So we decided, we did it for a year and a half. We got ticks. We're going to move on to the phase 2 of testing them for pathogens, and we'll write that up and release that. It's just there has never been a national survey of ticks on dogs and cats, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like you said, ticks are everywhere.
Yeah, it's incredible. And so,
first of all, before we get into it, Kathryn, what did you think of our tick prevention back in the day that we just described? Was it great or what? Put them into bath, rake them off.
So it's actually really funny that you guys are talking about that. Dr. Little, my mentor at Oklahoma State University, tells almost an identical story to the vet students.
Oh, really?
In Kentucky. And she said that was what you did after dinner. It was really fun. You'd all sit around the bed, pick off the ticks, light them on fire on the deck, see who could squirt it in the fire.
I want to be clear. I never said that was fun. That was crazy. Jennifer, who thinks that kind of stuff is fun. I was not happy with that. It was gross.
Mm-hmm.
You partook, so you had to build in somehow.
That's right. Jason, you were there, man. That's all I'm saying.
I was there.
So, do you hear her accent, Jason?
No. I hear no accent. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's lovely. And so she comes by it honestly. So tell us where you went to vet
comes
school.
by it honestly. You think people practice having a fake accent?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some people may.
See, they might. Okay, so where did you go to vet school?
So I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee, right at the base of the Smoky Mountains, and I went to vet school there at the University of Tennessee, and I graduated in 2018, but I loved it. I really loved it. I came here just to study ticks and work with Dr. Little, but I got interested in parasitology in vet school. I was matched randomly with the parasitologist there for a summer research program. We were studying worms, intestinal worms of wild turkeys, actually. It's a huge area in Tennessee, and so their populations were declining. And WRA reached out.
Population or the turkeys?
The turkeys.
Oh, okay.
The turkeys.
Yes. Excellent.
Got to clarify.
So now you're at Okie State.
Yes.
But you're also working on a PhD?
Yes. So my program is a little unique. So when I graduated vet school, I knew I wanted to do parasitology. And there's a residency program through the National Center for Veterinary Parasitology, which housed here at Oklahoma State. But we are at multiple schools across the United States. Usually 4, maybe sometimes 5 at a time. It's industry sponsored. So I'm actually the BI resident. They sponsor my residency.
Okay.
And I know, really restrictions or obligations to them. And so I'm at Oklahoma State. We have 1 at Kentucky right now. 1 just finished up at Iowa State.
Oh, wow.
Georgia, Louisiana. So I joined the program and is a PhD. So we all will finish with the PhD. And then following the 4 years, we're eligible to sit for boards.
Wow. That's going to be that's a big 4 years coming up. Yeah.
It is. It's a lot in 4 years.
It's a lot. So you have a particular interest in ticks. And I think it's interesting that the number one thing that people will come to the veterinarian, they're worried about ectoparasites. It will be a tick because they can see it. But the most common thing that we all see is fleas.
Well, you're in Florida, so fleas is definitely the major thing. We have an exercise we do with the vet students. It's kind of a trick question. Day of lab, and we list all these parasites, and we say, rank these what you think is most important from a veterinarian's perspective, and then rank them again most important from an owner's perspective. And you're exactly right. The things they can see is what they care about, and it depends where you are. So up north, ticks. Northeast, ticks, without a doubt, because of Lyme disease and eczema.
Ooh, Lyme disease.
Lyme's a good one. We can talk about that a lot.
Yeah, Jason, are you familiar with the Lyme disease?
Yeah, listen, I'm way at the southern end of Florida, so you think half of 3/4 of our population doesn't come from the northern end of the United States there? We got lots of dogs traveling back and forth, right? So
it's pretty amazing.
Lyme is a weirdly popular discussion down here. Like, it's a scary situation.
Well, dog importation in general, there's a paper that came out, Jason Drake did, dogs from the South, mostly Texas and Oklahoma, to Colorado, and the rise in heartworm disease they've seen diagnosing there. And if you went to a vet school that maybe heartworm disease wasn't preached upon as much as it is here in the South, it can be kind of a wake-up call of, oh gosh, maybe I need a little assistance with what I need to do here.
Yeah, but I think not just parasites, but even other infectious pathogens, because everyone's so mobile and everyone now takes their dog everywhere with them. I mean, the days of focusing on regionally specific pathogens, I think, are long, long over. Because when you talk about lepto, we're not talking about lepto just in rural communities anymore, right? It's a totally ubiquitous organism. If you are living and have a dog, your dog is susceptible to lepto. I mean, it's just 100%. It's the same thing with all these ectoparasites. If they're not on prevention, they're going to have them, right?
Exactly. Well, you were talking about no more regional things. A great example is we had a tick recently introduced into the United States.
Tell us. We love it in Texas, right? We love the name.
Of course you do.
Yes.
It's known as the Asian longhorn tick or
longhorn. Yeah. Hemophysalis longicornis. I talked over you when you were saying that cool name.
That's okay. Hemophysalis longicornis. It's kind of a mouthful. It's a really beautiful tick. It can be mistaken for the brown dog tick. It's a brown tick and it has short mouth parts. 2017, they found it on a sheep in New Jersey, and they're still tracking back.
Wait. They have sheep in New Jersey?
Oh yeah. I guess you may have to go a little deeper in, but yeah, a sheep.
I didn't see that on the Jersey Shore, Jason.
No, definitely not on Jersey Shore. You got to go inland more.
Right, further inland. Okay, all right. So, mind blown. They got sheep in Jersey, and the sheep had a weirdo tick.
Yeah.
And more importantly, you just use the words beautiful and tick right next to each other, which I found very interesting. A beautiful tick. Really? I don't know.
Well, did you Google it yet? Have you looked at it?
No, I'm going to Google it in a minute, but I'm still pretty sure I'm not going to call it beautiful.
Did you Google it yet?
Each our own, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess. No, it's great. You really
So it was first found there. It was first found there. And then slowly more and more reports in the Northeast. Actually, through Show Us Your Ticks, we had one submitted from a dog in Arkansas. And that's the farthest west that it's been so far. It's a tick that produces, the female does not require a male. You can just keep that life cycle going.
Wow. Is that common in ticks?
So there are some other ticks that will do it, but Hemophilus is one of the main ones that's known.
Wow. So other than it being a new tick that wasn't here, because it wasn't in the United States at all, right?
Correct. It's considered invasive. Yeah.
Okay, so it invaded us.
It did.
Yeah. But do we care? I mean, like, why do we care? Because we already have ticks, right?
Right. So the biggest thing for this tick is it can devastate cattle populations. So when it does get more into the Midwest and it gets on these big ranges of cattle, it'll feed in groups and just can really decrease the production of these cattle. So Dr. Little will tell people that hopefully it takes longer to get over the Appalachian Mountains and slowly come. But that's
just by sheer numbers?
Correct.
Like
sheer numbers. Wow. And they irritate and they're a nuisance. Yeah. And then because the females can reproduce without a male, it's really hard to break that life cycle. So if you're familiar with the cattle tick being in Texas, Theophilus, microplus. So that one, they were able to break the life cycle, some people say, because they did the dips and the walkthroughs on the cattle.
Yeah.
This would be a lot harder to do that. So it would be hard to get rid of. So that's the direct effects, but there's a lot of indirect. It can be a vector of some pretty serious diseases in other parts of the world. So far, no animal has been associated with having longhorn tick and being infected with a vector-borne disease. So bacteria are the big ones that they usually vector, but there are some viruses that are scary. In Japan, there's one in particular that's known for.
Oof. And so say the parasites again, it's because I think it cut out. Did you say Tyleria?
Yes, that's one of them you can do, And then the virus, it's a Japanese viral. It causes encephalitis in general, but it can be pretty serious and cause disease in people. And so we want to watch for that. So there's a lot of surveillance on this tick. It's a big hot topic.
Surveillance on the tick. That's just a lot of surveillance on this tick. Got to stay on it. Got to watch it.
Hey, we got to stay ahead of it.
I get it.
I know. What's so funny is like when you said that we're hoping that it doesn't make it, it'll have trouble getting across the Appalachian Mountains.
It's going to be hard to walk across the Appalachian Mountains.
I'm like, what? Like I see like a little tick with like a little backpack and a little axe and like he's climbing the mountain.
A little knapsack over his shoulder.
Yes, a little tick knapsack. Oh my gosh. That is hilarious. That's what I'm picturing. But so do people, because I know people go everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Do people bring ticks with them, or is
they definitely could.
Animals? Or
I think they hypothesize that it did come in shipment of animals. Likely, it definitely didn't cross the ocean. It didn't get in a little rowboat.
It didn't swim.
Could
you just see a little tick in his little dinghy?
A tiny rowboat with its knapsack.
Right, and it's because those mountains are coming. So I gotta have my knapsack and my little pickaxe, and I'm gonna have to hike it. Oh my goodness, that would be a super cute little plush. Somebody could market little Hemophilus plush.
Yeah.
Hey, Etsy has a lot of.
Good luck marketing a plush tick.
Dude,
actually, we have some in the lab right now.
I mean, I don't doubt it, right? I'm not sure you want to mass produce those though.
Hey, the vet clinics love when we send stuff like that to them. We even make ticks pins just because we wanted. I can send you some. You like?
Awesome! I love it. Show us your ticks.
It's like no.
Jason says no.
So they likely came in on animals.
Yeah, they came in that way. So that's interesting. So you mentioned a virus, and I'm interested in policy. I worked on Capitol Hill, and I worry about it. And there was a congresswoman who passed away from this crazy disease that was tick-borne, right? It was the Powassan.
The Powassan virus?
Powassan virus. Yeah. What is that about?
So that is tick-borne. It's not as common in North America as it is in other areas, but it is very serious disease. It can cause encephalitis in humans, and it is transmitted when the ticks feed through their salivary secretions. It's something to look out for whenever it's a virus. A lot of times with ticks, we care a lot more about bacteria. I think in the veterinary world, because Lyme disease, rickettsia, there are viruses we need to be more aware of. A lot of research. It's an area that always needs more research.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you say that it spread with the saliva because, growing up, we got ticks on us.
You got ticks on you. I never had a single tick on me. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Because she was pulling them off the dog.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right.
She was getting down and dirty. I was like, no thanks, right?
Well, anyway, so what I'm wondering is it like instantaneous? Like if the tick bites me, because most of the time you may not feel it like crawling,
Correct. Yeah.
And so if it bites me, does it like, boom, I'm done?
No, you have some time. Ticks secrete quite a few things from the salivary glands. And one of them, like you said, sometimes you don't notice that they're feeding because they do secrete numbing agents, anti-inflammatory agents. And so the welt takes a little bit longer to develop. So every agent that could be passed from ticks takes a different amount of time. But no, the minute it attaches, it does not. Ticks actually feed and they regurgitate, regurgitate. They're purifying that meal. They only want the protein. They don't need all of the liquid as much.
Okay, so I'm so sorry, Dr. Duncan. Can we back up just a moment?
Of course.
So are you saying that the ticks are puking into the person?
You could say that.
So
yeah.
Are they suffering from bulimia? Like, what do we have?
They're very efficient.
Well, they're not efficient if they got to eat it multiple times.
Well, they're efficient vectors, I guess I should. Because every time they take that meal and then they process it and regurgitate, that's a chance where agents may be able to pass down to the host they're feeding on.
Ah, okay.
They're efficient in that way.
Efficient in that way.
Yes.
Awesome. So we're going to take a quick break, folks. So go take a very quick shower if you need to. Press pause if you're feeling a little creepy crawly with ticks puking everywhere. And we're going to pay some bills. We'll be right back.
Vet Candy makes your life easier with scientific news, clinical updates, and expert lifestyle tips. Sign up for free at myvetcandy.com and start making your life sweeter.
We wear fur, and we're damn proud of it.
What?
And our 4 legs, and our tail, and we go to the bathroom outside. Well, we may not be too proud of that. Sniff around, then mark your spot right here. Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
Let's talk pets
on Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
All right. Thanks for hanging with us. So we are here in the Candyverse with Dr. Kathryn Duncan, who knows all about ticks and fleas and all kinds of parasites, but we've been focusing on the ticks. So the next time that you're playing Jeopardy and the question comes up, what eating disorder might ticks suffer from? Your answer is going to be, Jason?
Bulimia.
You got to put it in the form of a question.
I was just happy to know the answer. That's the third answer I got right today.
Yeah. What is bulimia? Because they got to puke the stuff out because they are efficient.
Yeah, maybe it's anorexia. I don't know.
No, that's when you don't eat at all. That would be the great tick because they would never bite you.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay.
That tick may take over the world.
That's
Might.
Okay. So,
Cross the mountains first.
So, and we also, we did talk about fleas too. And so we're going to talk a little bit about like how to prevent these things because I've already established that I don't want ticks and I don't want fleas, right? And I think what's interesting is that it's only like with fleas, it's only recently that you parasitologists got it together, right? And figured out that it's not the animal's bed that's the source of the fleas. It's the animal. Right? And so it was in the late 80s. It was like 1985. Like that was recent.
That's a long time. I mean, that was actually a long time. 85? That's not recent. I thought you were going to say something in 2001. 85?
They identified bacterial parasites like lepto in like the early 1900s or late 1800s. Ridiculous. What, they didn't know fleas? Like you can see fleas without a microscope. So anyway, so I think that's crazy. And but now, so we have a whole new approach to prevention, right? And so, here on In Other News, we avoid saying brand names. So we won't say any brand names, but we can certainly talk about those compounds that people use for fleas and ticks because we have a lot of them, right?
A lot of great options, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And some of them do fleas and ticks, right?
Correct. Yes, they do. I think that you mentioned that we slowly figured out. I think we're always figuring stuff out.
Yes.
Quit figuring things out. But yes, so fleas have always been, I've heard stories of how people used to do the flea bombs in their house. They would bomb the house with the really strong chemicals to get rid of.
Yes.
So why now we target the animal is more so because if you break down the time a flea spends, if you break down the day of a flea.
A day in the life of a flea.
Yeah, let's do that right now.
Now, is this a flea that's in the circus or is it just regular?
This is a flea that's in a home in Florida. Let's say that.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Or Louisiana.
Yeah. Why is it always got to be Florida?
The southern
because
flea.
You guys are famous.
It's a southern flea.
So we joke all the time. This is a little bit of a thing. Dr. Little and I joke all the time. We're very proud Oklahoma is so full of parasites. I mean, we love that. And so Florida and us have this relationship of who's going to have the more, when we do studies, which state's going to come out first. So we always are quite excited when Oklahoma comes out.
I would imagine Florida would win all of that, but I can't believe Oklahoma's got problems.
Oklahoma is up there, and we're proud of that. It's job security first off, and so it's just the right climate. That's really
good. Yeah, but I didn't think y'all had any water up there in in Oklahoma, but
we have some lakes, humidity. But okay, so fleas.
Yeah. Go ahead, fleas.
The day in the life of a flea, its life cycle in general, it actually is spent mostly in the environment. It's just how we target it now is that if an animal has a drug going through its system and the adults feed, then you will kill that animal. And there's a lot of drugs now that actually have insect growth regulators and whatnot in them as well. So then when they do lay an egg, those eggs either can't hatch out of the eggs or they can't develop onto the next stage. Because of that, that's how we can cut it off so much is these amazing compounds. And why fleas were so hard to control before is because we weren't targeting their meal source. Now we target their meal source and we can cut it much quicker.
So we poison their food.
We do. We do exactly what it is.
Yeah. Awesome. All fleas got to eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
They do. Yes.
It's better than what did Dad still says this is like some of the like a permethrin. He'll say that's not going to work. It just makes the flea's feet hot. So they jump off.
I like that.
That's what he says.
Oh my God.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So permethrins or pyrethrins. So pyrethrins were the first class, and permethrins are a synthetic version of that. They're just a little more persistent. Those are considered repellents. So they're usually topicals. They're regulated by the EPA, so they can be sold in pet stores and whatnot. Go systemic. So that's why the FDA doesn't have to be involved. So our compounds that do go into their bloodstream are considered going systemically. They have a little bit more potency. The animal does, or the parasite does have to feed to get that drug. So if you have a dog with flea allergy dermatitis.
Oh, that's bad.
The flea still has to bite to get the drug. Repellents are really great. You can use a repellent along with another drug. So isoxazoline.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. But you know what? So this brings up something else is because I actually didn't realize that about the flea prevention that goes systemically is that they still have to get bit. But that makes perfect sense, right? And the other thing is I always thought that tick prevention, I thought that was the kind of the rub with tick prevention. The tick had to bite in order to get treated and die and fall off.
You're correct. Yeah.
And don't we want to prevent the bite? Because if they bite my dog, haven't they already given them the disease?
It depends on the disease. I hinted earlier that all the different disease agents have different amount of times to transmit that disease agent. So a lot of times when they release these new classes of drugs, they do release speed of kill. So you can look that up on the drug, find speed of kill, so then you can understand how quickly these ticks will die. So for instance, my dog is on an isoxazoline, and I live in a pretty woodsy area. So I will see a dried up dead little tick hanging on to her fur every once in a while. And it's not that, I know, and I just
dried up dead little, like you had some
dead little tick.
You almost had some empathy for that tick, right?
I know.
The poor guy. Man,
he had a hard life. He really did. It just dried him right up, all crunchy.
Your tick just dried right up over there.
That's funny.
It's funny because you would think as a parasitologist we would have a lot of empathy for parasites because we study them and you get to know them. But at the same time, the other joy of our job is killing them. Protecting our clients, which are the pets.
Yes.
We're lucky to have these drug classes. I mean, there are concerns. Isoxazolines, you guys may have seen in the news. There's, I guess, warnings and alerts out for them about if an animal is susceptible to seizures, any sort of project, you likely be very cautious prescribing isoxazolines. But in general, they're extremely safe. And there's some reports out or just articles written that you should never use them and you should avoid them. But I think if you have that veterinarian client-patient relationship and you know that the pet doesn't have an increased susceptibility to seizures, you should feel confident in getting an isoxazoline. It's an amazing drug. It works very well.
So what about those ticks? Because people have told me before that there's been a house infested with ticks. Is that true? Does that happen? Like, what do they eat? Like stucco and drywall? I mean, what happens?
That would be very scary if they did. No, all ticks are like the blood feeders that we have here in North America. And so there's a brown dog tick. It's Rhipicephalus sanguineus. And the brown dog tick loves being inside. It prefers that climate. And so,
it's like the brown dogs.
Yeah, so it's funny. I make that joke sometimes. It's not that they prefer brown dogs. It's that they prefer dogs and the ticks happen to be brown. So the brown dog ticks like that environment. So you'll see kennels just infested, hundreds of thousands. They prefer the dog at every blood meal. So when they hatch as eggs, they're larvae, and then they feed, and then they molt to nymphs. They feed again, and then they molt to adults. And at each molt, they have to feed prior to molting.
Oh my gosh.
Other ticks, like small mammals, prior to finding a dog or cat as an adult. But the brown dog tick likes the dog for larvae and the nymph stages as well.
How long can ticks live without feeding on something?
So it depends on the tick as well. But some ticks, they'll go into kind of a diapause state and they go a year or two.
Oh my Lord.
Okay, here's something I hear a lot since we're going into all these crazy questions about ticks. We kind of diverged to that. Listen, I got this tick. I'm not dirty. My dog's taken care of. This tick got on me from a tree. It fell off off a tree.
It fell on me.
Yes.
And
what do you think? Do I just throw the flag on that, or can that actually happen?
So that is I think we all think that happens, but I promise you ticks don't fly down from trees. That's a huge myth we're always trying to bust. They may be on a leaf that's on a branch that you rub up. They're also quite quick. So Lone Star ticks or Amblyomma americanum, they are considered hunter ticks. They will chase after you, and you won't even know that they're near you.
We're going to have to change the subject because that's starting to really bother me. First ticks are coming off of trees. Then they're hunting me down after they come across the mountain with a backpack on. This is all after they cross the ocean. These things are scary.
Yes, but this is... Yeah. You know what it's called, Jason? This is one of my favorite tick characteristics. Like, tell us about questing.
Questing is how they find their host. So on the last pair of legs, they have these, it's called a Howler's organ, and it's their last appendage on their first pair of legs. And it's how they detect that we're there. So what they'll do is they'll climb up on a blade of grass, and they will put this first pair of legs out, and they sit there, and that Howler's organ senses our carbon dioxide emissions. They sense shadows, and that's how they know that we're there to then let go and
chase after us. Yeah, and chase after us, right? That's what you're going to say, but you don't want to say it. And come running after us and jump on us and give us terrible diseases. Man.
The Lone Star tick chases you. A lot of the other ticks will quest and wait. They're a bit more patient.
Oh, good. I like that.
Oh, more patient. More patient, those ticks. That is crazy. All right, so we talked a whole lot about ticks because we know they're your favorite. And we talked some about fleas, but there's a whole other system that gets parasites, right? Well, actually, there's several, but the gastrointestinal system gets a bunch of parasites, doesn't it?
A lot of parasites. I think that's one of probably the biggest focus out of the majority of veterinary clinics is preventing and treating gastrointestinal parasitism, especially in young dogs. There was a cute little jingle that we were taught in vet school. It was 2468 pyrantel pamoate.
I didn't hear that one.
You know, we were taught a jingle too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, what is it?
The barber pole. So, like, do you know this one about homunculus?
I don't think I do.
Okay, so shout out to Dr. Tom Craig, who was our parasitology professor, and he would do the little dance. We will not do it. But he would say, Homunculus contortus, the barber pole worm. It causes edema, the bottle jaw term. Yeah.
There's more to it, but she forgot it, so did I. But I'm impressed she actually remembered that. Vet school for her was like 30 years ago, so very good for her.
Come on, Jason. It was not 30 years ago. Okay, but anyway, yes. So it's funny. I guess all parasitologists are like, closet rock and roll wannabes or something. I don't know.
We've got to make it fun, and we find it fun, obviously. We wouldn't talk about it as much as we did if we didn't.
That's right.
Get that engagement, and that's how they get it, is we just come off just a little bit interesting.
Yeah, just a little bit
more interesting.
That's fantastic.
Yes. It is. So
listen, we got bulimic ticks, right? We got ticks that are questing, and we got hunter-gatherer. I mean, I'm very, very don't want to go anywhere now. I'm going to stay in the basement.
We can stay in the basement. We can move on to the worms that suck blood out of the...
Yeah, let's talk about those. Stuff that's in my intestines. Okay, great.
Let's talk about the guts. Let's talk about the good
stuff. So we, I think gastrointestinal parasites, we do kind of put them more towards the younger animals because we know a lot of them can be transmitted transplacentally or transmammary. But there are parasites in the world. I mean, they're ubiquitous, right? So there was a big national study done between a few people. We all collaborated. We went to 288 dog parks last summer, and we tested the feces of dogs that were visiting these dog parks, and it was amazing results. We saw 1 in 5 dogs had a parasite, and 85% of the parks had parasites. And I mentioned this, but it is kind of amazing. It was just 85%, and there's a reason we think that this may. You think about it. We went to these dog parks one time. It was a snapshot. One time, 10 dogs at the park. So there's definitely a chance that these numbers should be higher.
Right.
Yeah.
Or they could be lower, depending on the
dog. I doubt they're lower. They probably are higher, right?
So here's the moral of that story for me. Why, I wouldn't take my dog to a dog park.
So that's something, too, we're trying not to scare people. It's more about if you're going to take your dog to a dog park, be as prepared as when you take your dog to go board. So when you board your dog, you may decide, we got to make sure they have influenza or Bordetella vaccines.
Yeah, both, not or.
Both.
Watch out now.
So if you want to go to a dog park, you do need to make sure that they are on a preventive for gastrointestinal parasites. And I thought, so Giardia was the most common.
I was going to say, what was the most common that you found?
Giardia was the most common. It was in 13% of the dogs, which seems like a low percentage, but when you break down, we sampled 3,000 dogs. So Giardia was the number one, followed by hookworms, not surprisingly, then whipworms. Roundworms, we didn't have. We had roundworms. We definitely found roundworms, but it was a low percentage. And that likely has to do, if you think about the age group that's going to dog parks. Yeah. People know they shouldn't be taking their puppies to the dog park.
I hope people know. But you know what also I think? You can see roundworms. I mean, your dog has roundworms, you're seeing that, and you are freaking out, right? Because that's the big question. If you show up and you say, my dog has worms, I'm like, do they look like rice or do they look like spaghetti? I mean, these are the two choices, right?
I think that's a great way to ask that.
Yeah, because those are the only two you can see.
Yes, I had a friend recently that is dealing with a dog that has roundworms. And they are large enough that you do see them, and when they pass out. And that's a great example to get owners to go on a preventive as well. We asked a question at the dog park study, have they ever been diagnosed with parasites before? And we found it was statistically significant. They were more likely to be on a preventive if they had been diagnosed with the parasite before. So showing them those fecal results of the eggs or seeing worms in the feces, they are way more likely to buy a preventive and keep their pet on a preventive when you can show them.
Well, yeah, nobody wants to see that. Plus, people are just embarrassed, right? They go have their dog goes to the bathroom with someone else, and everyone sees that. They're like, "Oh, you don't even take care of your pet. That's gross."
I know, but you know what? We have focused on dogs, but cats,
A lot of parasites as well.
Tons of parasites, right?
So many. So they get ticks just as commonly as dogs do. They get intestinal worms just as commonly as well. Roundworms are one we see in cats pretty often. A lot of Giardia in cats as well.
Yeah, and can you debunk something for me? So the Giardia that you're finding in the dog, has there ever been a case of that Giardia that a dog has infecting the human?
In North America, there has never been a case of the dog Giardia infecting a human. So Giardia has different genotypes. And we can pass our genotypes to dogs and cats, though that is rare.
Yeah.
Dogs have certain genotypes, and even cats. So even dog and cat Giardia is actually different.
So because there's a whole lot of veterinarians that I run into, and they think that Giardia is passing through all these different species, you know, and they're sharing it. And I'm like, big NO. I mean, you still should wash your hands and not lick the dog poop, right? For other reasons. But it's not because of the Giardia is a big threat, right?
Correct. If you have Giardia as a human, you likely got it from contamination.
Another person.
Yeah. Why didn't y'all want to say that? It's funny. You got it from. Yeah, that's because
you got it from another human. That's
nasty. It's, you know what? It's like the COVID. If you got COVID, you likely got it from another person.
Right.
There you go.
Exactly.
I would say Giardia is nothing like COVID, and fecal oral is nothing like COVID.
Well, they found COVID in feces of those cats.
Oh no, of course.
Just saying.
Yeah. Just saying.
Okay. So cats get GI parasites too, right? Which is another thing. Like a lot of cat owners don't realize that even if your cat is 100% indoors, you know, they need to be on parasite
We
prevention.
showed that in the Show Us Your Ticks paper, actually. A lot of cats are reported as 100% indoors, and we obviously had ticks submitted from them. They had on us, on other animals, and we'll just seek out whatever host is closest.
Yeah, well, that's not, after listening to this, that's not too surprising, right? With the with the little army things, the questing and the running after. I'm not surprised at all. I'm pretty sure they can open doors now, right? And do arms and everything, right?
They're moving. Yeah. Another great example of that is heartworm in cats. So cats do get heartworm. As great of a host as dogs, so they rarely have microflora.
Wait, does that mean they're rude to their guests?
They are very rude to their guests. Proud of those cats.
That's right. Yeah.
But mosquitoes do come inside. And you need to protect your pets, cats, just as much as dogs against parasites.
Absolutely. And didn't I read that now that we're thinking, or they, I'm using air quotes, news hounds, they're thinking that all these asthmatic cats that we're seeing, those may be cats that actually have heartworm that's undiagnosed.
So the most common presenting complaint on a cat with heartworm disease is suspected feline asthma. So the syndrome is called HARDS. It's heartworm-associated respiratory disease syndrome, and they will look a lot like, their radiographs will look like they have asthma.
Yeah.
But you can do testing of cats for heartworms a little tricky. We don't have the best options. They very rarely have microflaria. So a NOx test or looking for that, it would just be a waste.
And microflaria is the little worms in the blood that we can sometimes see on a slide. On just
correct. Yes.
Blood. Yeah. Yes. In dogs, you can see that a lot of times, but in cats, they just don't seem
to
have
is there? I think you just said it. Is there a test that veterinarians should look for? There's just not a reliable way to diagnose feline heartworm.
So there are a few tests, usually antigen and antibody, but all antibody tests, right? It gives you information, but then you have to decide how are you going to.
Yeah, it's a contextual test for sure.
Information.
Yeah. Because you can have antibodies just because you've been exposed.
Right.
You don't have to be.
Oh yeah. So the lifespan of a heartworm in a cat is considerably shorter. So in a dog untreated, a heartworm can live 6-7 years. In a cat, it's just a couple years. And we don't have an FDA approved drug, adulticide, to kill the adults in cats. So it's considered the slow kill. You're going to put them on a macrocytic lactone and slow kill those worms and treat their respiratory disease. So antigen's great if you can get an antigen positive, The antigens secreted by the worms, mostly by the female.
Right.
If they don't have a female worm in the heart, then
correct.
You're done.
It's like a PCR negative. It doesn't mean much if you get negative. So
Right.
positive is
Right.
great, but a negative is not necessarily indicative.
Exactly.
It's not the best thing to rule out. So with cats, we say you should use radiographs and echocardiograms. You can see the worms in the pulmonary vessel. The pulmonary artery. They look like railroad tracks.
I've seen that. I like, on a video.
Yeah,
I wasn't doing it, obviously. But
What are you talking about?
I know, like her eyes got really big, like,
She
whoa!
did. You're like, what? Really? Wow.
I just think it's amazing when you do see it because you just don't see it that often, or the client doesn't elect to
do the echo. But but it's preventable.
It is, and that's
It's preventable.
Start from the beginning, right?
Yes, that's why cats, even 100% indoor cats, need to be on parasite prevention. They need to go to the vet and get vaccinated, and then they need to be on parasite prevention, right?
Hey, you're
100%.
preaching to the crowd right now.
That's right. I am. My soapbox is out. I'm standing on top of it. I love prevention.
We should add it needs to be year-round.
Year-round.
It's out all months of the year. We've shown that many times.
Mm-hmm.
Gastrointestinal parasites, some are quite hardy, and they can go through freezing of soil and will be right there to be infective whenever the dog comes by.
Do you hear that, Jason? Quite hardy.
Quite hardy. I was like, I thought she said freezing, and I didn't know what you were going to ask me because I haven't seen a freezing temperature in, forever.
I know.
And I'm very proud of that, too. We don't live up there in Oklahoma where it's cold,
where it gets cold.
Crazy.
That's right.
It can,
That's right.
yes.
No, not it can. It does.
That's right. Okay. So what is the craziest thing that you ever heard, whether you heard it yourself or like a referring vet told you, craziest thing a client has said they have tried for parasite prevention, whether it's fleas or ticks or what have you? What's the craziest?
Oh my goodness. I've definitely heard a lot, but they seem to be repetitive. It's usually, I've never heard anything so far left field that I want to personally call them and track that down.
Yeah.
I think I hear a lot more for ticks than intestinal parasite control. Of course, there's so many, the diatomaceous earth, I think is one big for GI parasites. But for ticks, you hear put nail polish on them, Vaseline, light them
on
up.
the tick.
The tick is feeding on
The
the
tick's
dog
already
or
there,
cat.
people. Yeah.
So we try to light them on fire, things like that.
What about garlic? Like, I feed my dog garlic so he doesn't get parasites or doesn't get fleas or whatever.
Right. I've heard garlic for flies quite often. And I don't know if there's a lot of science behind that yet. There's been more and more science trying to do essential oils.
Yep.
There's papers out there for repellency of essential oils. And I think it's just certain people, the modern lifestyle of a lot of people right now is trying to put their pet into their lifestyle. And I think it's great to take that much interest in your pet, but I think it's also great to listen to your veterinarian.
Oh, listen to your veterinarian, right? Tea tree oil. No.
Yeah, no, for whatever reason, chemicals and drugs are being vilified a little bit in popular culture. So,
and they're they're safe. If they're labeled, then they're safe.
There's a reason it costs so much money in the beginning because they got to spend all that money to make sure they're safe. So,
the safety trials on these drugs is amazing.
Right.
What they go through to be safe, be considered safe by the FDA.
Now, that doesn't mean that, don't send us hate mail because you witnessed an adverse reaction to one of these products when you were using it for your pet, right? It doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but it means that it's fairly unlikely.
You can send Dr. Jen some hate mail. That'd be fine.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, I mean, tea tree oil, used motor oil, right? For mange and for fleas and ticks.
Yeah, it's very useful.
Yeah, like the garlic, the tea tree oil. I'm trying to think of any other crazy stuff I've heard. Just crazy stuff. And I'm like, can you just buy the stuff?
I know it would be great. And I think there's a responsibility as a pet owner to prevent these infections.
Yeah.
Because if your pets are infected, you're potentially spreading that. You're the source, you're the reservoir.
Mm-hmm.
There's quite a few GI parasites in dogs and cats that are considered zoonotic. So that's a public health concern.
It's a big public health concern.
And hookworms are everywhere. They, especially in Florida, Oklahoma, but they're everywhere. In that study we found, hookworms are the second most parasite we found. And so those are zoonotic. And if you're going to the dog park, I'll recommend wearing closed-toed shoes.
Or the beach. Or the beach. That's a big deal.
That's a big one. Yeah.
Huge deal. Beach and feral cats.
Because beach is really close to litter box.
Very close.
Oh, so close.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So, yeah. And you know what I find interesting? Do you guys know what's on the EPA website, what they tell you to do for flea control in your pet? Anybody?
No.
Yeah, Google it.
Not motor oil.
No. They tell you that you can vacuum your house twice a day. Yeah.
You'll be vacuuming your house for twice a day for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
Forever.
you can, right? That's good. I'm not sure it's going to do anything for that. But
Yeah. So anyway, well, this has been an incredible conversation. Dr. Kathryn Duncan, who's currently at Oklahoma State, but she hails from the great state of Tennessee. And thank you so much for joining us here in the Candyverse.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Great.
And I suspect we'll have you back because now that we know all about bulimic ticks and questing ticks and ticks that don't eat stucco, but it can infest your house. I mean, there's just too much to talk about with parasites. Fleas, ticks, GI parasites, all of it.
You forgot the most important, scary one, the hunter ticks. Come on.
The Lone Star tick will hunt you down. That's right. The Lone Star tick it's kind of like the Texas Rangers, right? They'll hunt you down.
That would be a great meme. Somebody should make that.
Somebody should make that meme. That's right. Hey, that's what we do here on In Other News is we offer the ideas for the memes. Yep. And then we wait for the internet to respond. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us. And as always, signing off from the cottage at the farm, I'm Dr. Jen.
Yep, as always, I'm from the basement. I'm Dr. Jason.
And we'll look forward to seeing you again. You can follow us on social media at MyVetCandy, or you can find us by email. And we'll see you on the next episode of In Other News.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.